The third lizard on the bathroom wallpaper had always creeped me out. It had a lazy eye. Today it seemed smug. That's where I was standing when she told me. She didn't wait for me to come out of the bathroom. She just shouted it through the door like she was calling out a pizza order. I have no desire with you anymore. Not a whisper. Not a sob. A declaration. Like she was proud of it. Like it was overdue, and I should be thankful she finally found the courage. I flushed nothing, because I wasn't even using the toilet, and opened the door slowly. She was sitting on the dresser, legs dangling off the edge like a bored teenager, twirling the chain of the necklace I gave her last Groundhog Day. Yes, Groundhog Day. Don't ask. There was a single potato chip on the floor near her boot. I stared at it for 6 seconds longer than I should have. What do you mean? I finally asked, even though the words had already etched themselves across my ribcage like acid graffiti. Desire, she repeated, this time slower. It's just evaporated. Like when you leave ginger ale open for too long. I didn't know how to respond to that. I mean, what do you even say to someone who compares your emotional connection to expired soda? So I asked the dumbest thing possible. Do you want tea? She laughed. Laughed. Like I'd told a joke at a funeral. You always do that, she said, hopping off the dresser. Offer tea when things feel like earthquakes. And then she said it again. Not to me. To the room. I have no desire with you anymore. That, with burn me alive. Not for me. With. Like I was a carpool buddy she'd outgrown. I didn't say anything after that. I just grabbed my sweater off the back of the chair, stepped over the potato chip, and left the house. Didn't slam the door. Didn't cry. Just walked out barefoot. Down 3 steps. And then I heard it. Not her voice. Someone else's. From behind the porch column. Hey, wait. I didn't think you'd actually go. It was her friend. The one with the violet nail polish and the faint German accent that always made me feel like I was being interrogated with kindness. She stepped into view. And she was holding my toothbrush. The toothbrush wasn't just a toothbrush. It was my toothbrush. The one with the bent bristles from anxious overbrushing. The one I'd labeled with a tiny O in Sharpie because Lorna always stole mine by accident. But Nicolette was holding it like a relic. 2 fingers, pinched at the center, like it might buzz or explode. Don't go back inside, she said, before I could ask. I blinked. Why do you have that? She looked over her shoulder toward the closed door. Her voice dropped, almost to a whisper. Because I thought you were going to take it. And you shouldn't. I know what you're thinking. Why would someone care if you took a toothbrush? I thought the same thing. But there was something in her voice. Something tight. Uneven. Like she was afraid of what was attached to it. And I wasn't about to admit it out loud, but, in that moment, I was going to go back inside. I was going to grab a backpack, maybe a hoodie, my stupid smartwatch that doesn't even track my sleep right. But now, all I could do was stare at Nicolette. Her eyes. Her silence. You're shaking, I said. I didn't want to be part of this, she said. But I am. And now so are you. I swear on every tear I haven't cried yet. A cold breeze ran straight down the middle of my spine. Not the poetic kind. The animal kind. The get out now kind. She handed me the toothbrush. Keep it if you want, she added. Just don't brush with it. What do you do with a sentence like that? I took it anyway. And that's when I noticed it. Just above the bristles. Faint. Almost invisible unless the light hit it just right. Tiny scratches. Letters. 3, maybe 4. I held it up like a detective in a cheap drama. Tilted it toward the streetlight. DN4. What does that mean? I asked. She looked at me like I'd just asked what color the sky was. You don't know? No, Nicolette, I don't know. I thought I was just having a marriage-ending day, and now I'm playing escape room with a toothbrush. She winced. Lower your voice. I looked back at the house. The curtain in the guest room fluttered. Someone was definitely watching. Look, she said, leaning in. You didn't hear this from me. I wasn't here. You didn't see me. And you definitely didn't get that from me. And just like that, she stepped back into the shadows of the neighbor's hedge. Disappeared between fence slats like she'd practiced it. I was left holding a toothbrush, no shoes, and an ache in my chest that was starting to hum like a wasp trapped in a bottle. I walked to the car. Opened the door. Sat inside. Locked it. I stared at the toothbrush for 10 minutes. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered like an idiot. Hello. A man's voice. Low. Familiar, but distorted by what I swear was running water in the background. DN4 was never supposed to leave the house. Oren. Click. Silence. The call ended, but the sound in my ears didn't. It rang like something hollowed out behind my temples. A voice, a warning, a code, and then water. Always water. I stared at the screen, hoping it would ring again. Nothing. Just the echo of that last sentence. DN4 was never supposed to leave the house. Oren. I locked the car doors. Like that would help. I mean, what exactly was I protecting myself from? A toothbrush conspiracy? My soon-to-be ex-wife's underground grooming cartel? I laughed. The kind of laugh you hate yourself for because it doesn't fix anything. I was unraveling. Then I saw it. Through the window, the light in the kitchen flicked on. The faucet turned on, full blast. No one was at the sink. I stared. It ran for 3, maybe 4 seconds. Then stopped. Light off. Curtain didn't move. No silhouette. Just an automated moment in a house that didn't have smart appliances. I grabbed the toothbrush from the passenger seat. Turned it in my hand like it might explain something. There were other scratches I hadn't noticed. Not letters this time. Just deep, uneven grooves. As if someone had been trying to carve into the plastic with a needle. A name, maybe? A date? I wiped my palm on my jeans. I didn't like the way the toothbrush felt anymore. It felt warmer than it should have. That sounds insane, I know, but I swear it pulsed like a battery just once in my grip. I dropped it into the glove compartment and slammed it shut. When I looked up, Lorna was standing in the window. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking down. At the doormat. Perfectly still. Hands by her side. I didn't want to go back to the house. But I also couldn't leave yet. I started the engine. It clicked, then died. The battery light blinked, then went dark. I tried again. Nothing. Dead. Of course it was. Because of course I wasn't allowed to leave yet. That's when Nicolette texted me. I shouldn't have let it slip. Get to 715 Lorimer. Don't tell her. There was no contact name. Just the number. But I knew it was her. Violet heart emoji next to the message. She always used those when she was trying not to sound cold. Which she always did. I had no idea what 715 Lorimer was. I barely knew which direction Lorimer was in. My phone GPS had 4% battery left, and the charger was inside. With her. I opened the car door, stepped out, and made one rule in my head. Get the charger. Don't look at her. Don't talk. Don't ask questions. I crept up the porch. The floorboards knew I was lying to myself and screamed under my feet anyway. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open, just enough to slide inside. No sound. No movement. Just that smell. Slightly sour. Not quite mold. Not quite food. Like something had recently gone wrong in the house. The charger was by the couch. 10 feet away. I made it 7 before I heard the second faucet turn on. This time it was upstairs. Bathroom. Full blast. Again, no one there. I froze. And then I heard her voice. Not Lorna's. Nicolette's. But it was coming from upstairs. She was laughing. Not loudly. But I knew that laugh. That soft, apologetic laugh she used when she was caught sneaking the last slice of cake, or when she lied to waiters about her shellfish allergy just to get a smaller portion. He has it, she said between giggles. He took it. I told you he would. My breath caught in my throat. She was supposed to be gone. She left. I watched her vanish through the hedge like a magician's assistant. I backed up. Slowly. 1 foot behind the other. My heel hit the side table. A small photo frame clattered to the floor. The glass didn't shatter, but the thud was loud enough to cut through her laugh. The faucet stopped. So did the voice. I ran. Didn't look back. Didn't grab the charger. Didn't stop until I was 3 blocks away, barefoot on gravel, my phone now at 2%, my lungs burning like I'd swallowed bleach. I ducked behind a dumpster. Opened Google Maps. Typed in 715 Lorimer. The screen loaded slowly. My signal was dying. Finally, it pulled up. It wasn't a store, or a warehouse, or even a motel. It was a veterinary clinic. Closed since 2009. The walk to Lorimer felt endless, like the streets had stretched themselves out just to see how far I'd go before turning around. I didn't. I couldn't. My phone died 3 blocks before I got there, but I didn't need GPS anymore. The clinic announced itself before I even saw it. That faint chemical smell that clings to abandoned hospitals and old paint. The sign above the cracked glass still said open in faded blue. Someone had never turned it off. The gate was twisted open just enough for one person to squeeze through. I should have called someone, but who was I supposed to call? My wife had just told me she didn't want me. Her best friend was talking in riddles about toothbrushes, and a man with a bathroom echo had warned me not to touch something I already had in my pocket. So I did the only logical thing an emotionally fried idiot would do. I went inside. The air was thick and stale. My shoes stuck slightly to the tile with every step. The place hadn't been cleaned in years, but it didn't smell like complete abandonment. It smelled recent, like someone had been there in the past few hours. The hallway lights flickered faintly, powered by something unseen. I passed a row of old kennels, each with a metal tag rusted into unreadable names. One had a chain still attached to the wall, swinging slightly, even though there was no draft. Halfway down the hall, I saw a small room with its door cracked open. The plaque on it read Lab Storage. Inside, there were papers scattered across the floor, not the kind you expect in a clinic. They looked like forms, lists, handwritten notes. The top one caught my attention immediately because of the handwriting. It was Lorna's. Her looping, neat handwriting that always looked too perfect for grocery lists or sticky notes. The paper read, DN4, viable, relocated to residence. Monitor response in close proximity. Nicolette assisting. Subject unaware. I froze. The ink had bled slightly from moisture, but the words were clear enough. I read them again, slower this time. Subject unaware. The kind of sentence that doesn't belong in a marriage or anywhere near a toothbrush. My heartbeat was a drum against my ribs. I flipped through the other pages. Most were smudged, but some had fragments, samples, exposure window, memory correlation test. It was like reading instructions for a nightmare I hadn't realized I was living in. Behind me, something creaked. The sound came from the end of the hallway, soft footsteps, dragging slightly. I turned toward the doorway and saw a shape standing just beyond the broken light. Not Lorna, not Nicolette. A man, tall, shoulders too straight, like a soldier or someone pretending to be one. He didn't move closer. He just said my name. Oren. The way he said it, calm, almost disappointed, sent my stomach plummeting. I didn't respond. My throat had locked itself shut. I told you not to take it, he continued. The same voice from the phone. Not distorted this time. Real. Close. I didn't know what it was, I managed to say. It's just a toothbrush. He tilted his head, like a teacher looking at a failing student. It's not what it looks like. You shouldn't have touched it. You shouldn't have come here. What does DN4 mean? I asked. He sighed quietly, stepped into the light, and I could finally see his face, clean-shaven, early 40s, eyes sharp and hollow at the same time. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in years but had never stopped working. There was a small mark on his neck, like an old burned scar in the shape of a line. DN4 isn't a thing, he said. It's a person. I felt every muscle in my body freeze at once. What? He pointed at the folder in my hand. You were DN4. That's what we called you before she gave you a name. The floor tilted under me. My knees wanted to give out. No, that's insane. I'm human, he interrupted. I know she told you that. I wanted to laugh, but my mouth wouldn't open. My pulse hammered so hard it drowned out everything else. He took a step closer. Check your shoulder. You'll see it. I didn't move. Left side, he said. Under the skin. A faint scar, like a circle. She said it was a childhood vaccine, right? I couldn't help it. My hand moved on its own. I pulled down my collar, and under the flickering light, I saw it. A perfect, pale circle, smooth as porcelain. Not a scar. Not skin. Something else. The man didn't smile. He just turned and started walking back down the hallway. You were never supposed to remember this, he said. But she got attached. And attachments ruin everything. I wanted to shout after him, to demand an explanation, but the words died in my throat. I turned back to the table. The papers were gone. Every single one. Only the toothbrush remained. Lying on the floor, humming faintly, almost vibrating. The hum grew louder. The lights dimmed. Then, from somewhere deep in the building, I heard her voice again. Lorna's. Oren, put it down. I didn't put the toothbrush down. I should have. Every fiber of my body was buzzing with fear. My hand tingled like the plastic was feeding me electricity, but I gripped it tighter, not looser. Maybe because it was the only thing in that moment that felt real. Not the man with the burn scar voice, not the empty clinic that breathed when I wasn't looking at it, not the scratchy files that vanished behind my back. But this object, vibrating in my palm like it had a pulse, this I could hold. Lorna's voice echoed again, louder now, closer. Oren, put it down before it remembers too much. That sentence clung to my brain like a wet rag. It remembers? Not me. I turned slowly. The hallway behind me was empty. The lights flickered in threes, one after the other, like something was moving down the corridor too fast for the eye to catch, but not fast enough to hide its weight. I stepped back into the storage room, gripping the toothbrush like a weapon, ridiculous as that was. But I wasn't thinking rationally anymore. I wasn't even sure I had the capacity for rational thought left. "Oren," she said again, this time from the doorway. "Lorna." Except not quite. She looked exactly the same. Red sweater, tangled bun, those same faint freckles just under her right eye. But something in her posture had changed. She stood straighter, more calculated, less tired, less soft. Her eyes scanned the room, not with panic, but like she was taking inventory. "Where's the file?" I didn't answer. My throat was clenched so tight I could barely breathe. She saw the toothbrush in my hand, and her jaw tensed. That wasn't meant to be touched after phase 2. My knees gave out, and I slumped to the floor, back against the metal cabinet. "You're not making any sense," I whispered. "You said you didn't want me anymore. That was real. You wanted me gone." "I did," she said quietly. "But not like this. Not before extraction." That word, extraction. It wasn't medical. Not the way she said it. It was industrial. It was surgical. "I'm not a thing," I said. "You don't get to call me that." She sighed, stepped inside the room, and for the first time, I saw her eyes properly, wide, gleaming, and not entirely sad. She looked at me like I was her child. Or her mistake. Or both. "I didn't know you'd get so," she trailed off. "Real. You weren't supposed to develop that fast. We were meant to monitor you, guide the responses, log memory flashes, and emotional architecture. Nicolette warned me. She said I was getting too personal. Naming you was already a breach." "Breaching what?" I snapped. "What the hell am I? You keep talking like I'm a spreadsheet." She stepped closer and crouched beside me. I could smell her shampoo, citrus and clove, and I hated how familiar it was. She placed her hand gently on my arm. Not as comfort, as confirmation. "You're a test," she said softly. "A cognitive structure inside a body. DN4 was one of 4 sequences. But you were the only one who started to dream. That changed everything." I laughed, but it came out choked. "Dream? You think that makes me special? I wet the bed in 3rd grade and forgot my dad's birthday last year. Those aren't dreams. That's just life." "That's the point," she said, eyes wide now. "You weren't programmed with those. You built them. You expanded past your inputs." "Inputs," I muttered. "God, you're not synthetic," she added. "Not entirely. You were grown. Accelerated. Given limited exposure. We placed memories. Simulated a few years. Then we let you live. You were the closest to self-evolving attachment we've ever seen. You started to love." She said that last word like it was a disease. I stood. My legs barely worked, but I managed. "So why the show? The house, the fights, the dinner parties, the sushi nights? Was that all data collection?" Her silence was answer enough. I pointed the toothbrush at her. "What is this?" "It stores impressions," she said. "Tactile sensors. Saliva composites. We were trying to see if exposure to a shared object could trigger autonomous memory recovery. When you took it, you initiated a lock-free access loop. That's why the faucet turned on. Your memory was syncing." I had no idea what most of that meant. But the part that stuck, trigger memory recovery, made something sink in my chest. So all those nights I stayed up wondering why I didn't remember my college years. "They were never installed," she said gently. The room started spinning again. I pressed a hand to my temple. "But I remember my dog. My mom. My 10th birthday. Constructed," she said. "Efficiently. Imperfectly. Your mind filled the gaps. You wanted connection so badly you wove the empty threads into stories." I closed my eyes. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Not yet. I didn't have the breath. "I didn't want to terminate you," she whispered. "But the more you loved, the harder it got. And when you started writing poetry, I knew it was over." That made me snap. "You read my notebook?" She looked almost guilty. "I didn't mean to. You left it on the table. The one about the oranges made me cry." I threw the toothbrush across the room. It clattered against the tiles and skidded into the dark. Somewhere far off, something beeped, like a monitor flatlining. Lorna flinched. "That was your exit token," she said under her breath. "What does that mean?" I asked. Then the lights cut out. Every single one. And the door slammed shut behind her. When the lights went out, the darkness didn't feel empty. It felt crowded. Heavy. Like there were things in the room with us that didn't move until the power died. Lorna was still there. I could hear her breathing just a few feet to my right. Shallow, controlled, like she wasn't surprised by what had just happened. Like this was part of it. What do you mean, exit token? I asked, voice shaking hard enough to turn syllables into splinters. It means your integration time is over, she said calmly. The toothbrush was the last tether. You let it go. So it starts now. What starts? No answer. Just the hum of something far away, low, electric, rhythmic. It felt like a heartbeat that didn't belong to either of us. I took a step back and felt the door. It wouldn't budge. The metal was warm under my hands, as if it had just been sealed shut. And then a voice crackled over a speaker hidden somewhere in the ceiling. It wasn't the man from before. This one was different, clinical, bored, almost synthetic in its tone. Subject DN4 has reached breach threshold. Autonomy layer detected. Proceeding to deconstruct environment. My skin went cold. What the hell is that? I demanded. What does that mean? Lorna stepped forward. I felt her presence more than saw it, and placed something in my hand. Smooth. Flat. Cold. A keycard. There's a hatch behind the kennel wall. Use this. Don't stop. Don't ask. Don't wait. I gripped it tight. Why are you helping me now? She hesitated. Her voice cracked for the first time. Because I think I wanted it to be real, too. Then she did something that shattered me. She kissed my forehead. Gentle. Familiar. The kind of kiss that lives in quiet marriages and lazy Sunday mornings. And then she shoved me back into the hallway and slammed the door shut from the inside. I stood there, stunned, the echo of that kiss still burning into my skin. Seconds later, a loud mechanical snap echoed through the hallway, followed by a low hiss. Gas, maybe? I didn't wait to find out. I ran. The kennel wall was easy to find. The tiles near it were cracked and dustless, like they'd been moved recently. I wedged my fingers behind the smallest one and pulled. It snapped loose with a pop and revealed a narrow metal slot. I swiped the keycard. A soft beep. A door slid open. What was behind it was not what I expected. It wasn't a tunnel. It wasn't a lab. It was a waiting room. A pristine, well-lit, soft-carpeted, mid-century modern waiting room, complete with brochures, warm lighting, and a potted ficus that looked suspiciously fake. There were 3 people sitting in chairs. All of them looked up at me at the same time. One was a boy, maybe 16, wearing a school uniform and clutching a Rubik's Cube. The second was an older man in a tuxedo, but no shoes. The third was a woman. She looked like Lorna. No, not like. Exactly like her. I froze. What is this? The boy spoke first. You got out. The older man nodded slowly. They must have changed the loop. And the woman, the second Lorna, tilted her head with a small smile. Welcome to the fallback layer. What are you talking about? She stood and approached me. The smile didn't reach her eyes. This isn't the real world, Oren. It never was. You didn't live in it. You nested in it. The whole system was designed to study what a mind would do when given choices inside an artificial life. But my memories, my pain, the people, the smells, the music. I remember being 6. I remember falling off a bike. She nodded. And you always fell the same way, didn't you? Left knee, blue handlebars, cracked helmet? My mouth dried instantly. How do you know that? Because every memory you think is yours exists inside a fixed behavioral pattern. When we copy them, we give them minor variables. But the key events stay the same. The bike crash, the missing tooth, the girl you had a crush on named Harper in middle school. They're anchors. I shook my head violently. No, I had a life. I had panic attacks and dreams and cereal I hated. You can't simulate that. She stepped closer, whispered, can't we? I backed away until I hit the wall. I think I was real, I muttered. They all looked at me now. I think I was a real person once, before they deleted me. Silence. Then the older man exhaled slowly. That's what all of us said. At first. My hands began to tremble again. So what is this? Purgatory? It's what's left, the boy said, still turning the Rubik's Cube, even though all the stickers were white. The second Lorna walked over to the door across the room, a bright red exit sign above it. You can walk through that door, she said. Or you can stay here and talk to ghosts of yourself until your cognition collapses. Up to you. I stared at the door. My chest hurt. My fingers were numb. What's behind it? I asked. She smiled. This time, It almost looked real. The next simulation. And the version of you that still thinks she loves her husband. I didn't open the red door. Not right away. Instead, I sat on one of the soft green chairs that looked like they belonged in a dentist's office from 1974. The fabric squeaked slightly beneath me, and that squeak, that imperfect friction, was enough to make me think maybe, just maybe, I was still somewhere close to reality. Because even simulations have seams, right? They can't fake the chaos of being alive, not perfectly. They can't reproduce the parts of life that don't make sense, the accidents, the random phrases that stick in your head for years for no reason, the smells that trigger nothing and everything all at once. But then I looked across the room and saw myself. Not a mirror. A version of me. Younger. Maybe by 3 years. Cleaner haircut. Sharper jawline. He was staring at his hands like they were instructions he couldn't follow. When he looked up, he saw me too, and his eyes widened. Not with recognition, but with confusion, like he didn't know what he was seeing. The second Lorna, let's just call her that now, to keep track, stood near the red door, watching both of us. This is the interesting part, she said softly, like a museum docent showing off a tragic sculpture. You're both the same base model, just seated with different triggers. One of you got love, the other got ambition. Guess which one broke first? The younger me stood slowly. Who is he? He asked, pointing at me. That's your recursion, she replied. You all have one. Some of you find each other. Some of you don't. Most of you dissolve before you get this far. I stood too. My heart was hammering, but not out of fear this time, out of rage. The kind of deep, slow-burning fury that doesn't explode. It builds. It collects evidence. It learns to aim. What happens if I go through the door? I asked again. She tilted her head, as if disappointed I'd returned to that question. You enter a new thread, a new test. We wipe the surface, reseed the core memories, and release you into another scenario. You might have a different name, or none. You might fall in love again. You might be the one who leaves this time. The pain will feel real, because it always does. The boy in the uniform, the one with the Rubik's Cube, finally stood. I walked through it, he said. Twice. And he looked at the second Lorna, then back at me. The second time, I remembered something I wasn't supposed to. What was it? He hesitated. That there was a real world once. Or maybe that I was real once. I saw a field. Just grass and sky. I think I used to stand there. I think someone loved me there. My chest clenched. The idea that we'd been more before all this, that this entire labyrinth of layers was a cage around something long forgotten, made me nauseous. What if I don't go through? I asked. What if I stay here? The older man, who had stayed silent until now, looked at me with calm eyes. Then you live in the waiting room. You sit. You forget slowly. You fade. You become one of the versions who smiles at new arrivals, offering nothing but vague hope. The second Lorna walked toward me now, slowly, carefully. You're rare, she said. You're not supposed to ask this many questions. Your model had a failure in the compliance layer. We logged it during the first loop. But we let it run anyway, just to see. To see what? I whispered. If defiance makes you human. She reached into her coat and pulled out something small, a glass shard, no larger than a coin. Inside it, suspended like an insect in amber, was a memory. I don't know how I knew that. I just did. I could feel the emotion in it, like heat radiating off metal. She held it up. This is you. The original you. Before the overlays. Before the life was layered on top. We keep one fragment, just in case. What happens if I take it? I asked. You remember, she said. I hesitated. Then I reached out. The moment my fingers brushed the glass, the room screamed. Not the people, the walls. The lights burst. The red door dissolved into static. The chairs flipped over as if thrown by invisible hands. I fell to my knees, gripping the memory shard to my chest as a wave of cold ran through me like ice cracking along my spine. And then, grass. I saw it. Endless grass, wind bending it in one direction like a field of whispers. A fence in the distance. A woman, not Lorna, standing with her back to me, humming. A real sky. Not rendered. Not lit. Just there. I took a step forward. And the shard vanished. The waiting room came roaring back. Only now, it was burning. Flames licked the walls, but made no heat. The boy was gone. The man gone. Second Lorna? Still there. But she was changing, her face shifting, glitching between a dozen versions of itself. All Lorna. All her. Different smiles. Different lives. Different roles. Why are you showing me this? I shouted over the sound of collapsing reality. She leaned in close, voice soft even now. Because the next version of you might listen. Then everything collapsed. The floor, the ceiling, the fire, the walls. All folding in like a sheet of paper being tucked away. And then, darkness. Not silence. Not peace. Just the soft click of a switch. And a new voice. Familiar. My own. Reading. I have no desire with you anymore, it said. I stood up and walked out. Behind me, her best friend said, "Hey, wait." And I opened my eyes. Back in the kitchen. At the beginning. But this time, I wasn't the one holding the toothbrush. She was. And she was crying. She stood there, in our kitchen, holding the toothbrush. Crying. It wasn't a sob. It wasn't staged. It was the kind of quiet, helpless crying that comes from realizing you've hurt someone without meaning to, and now the damage is real and irreversible and sitting in the same room with you. That's how I knew this wasn't the same Lorna. Not the second version, not the controller, not the handler behind the simulation. This was her, the real one, or at least the closest to real I'd ever known. And I was still here, not in a burning waiting room, not in a loop, not in a system. Here. Oren, she said through a trembling breath. I didn't mean to say it like that. I didn't even know I was going to say it. It came out. I blinked. My heart was pounding, but not in fear. In something gentler. Like waking up too fast after a dream that almost convinced you it was real. I don't understand, I said. And I didn't. Not fully. But maybe that was okay now. She put the toothbrush down on the counter, carefully, like it was made of glass. Then she looked at me, eyes swollen and desperate. "You remember everything now, don't you?" she asked. I nodded slowly. Enough to know that nothing was real. Not the house. Not the memories. Not you. She winced. "That's not true. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you. That wasn't in the design." "But it happened anyway," I said. She gave a small, broken laugh. "You started writing notes in the margins of your books. You sang to the kettle. You said good morning to the hallway plant like it was a roommate. And when you got a cold, you apologized to me for sneezing too loud. You weren't just a simulation, Oren. You became something. You chose to care." I stared at her. And for the first time, I believed her. "I saw a memory," I said. "A field. Someone humming. A real sky." She smiled, tearfully. "That was your first moment. Before the systems. Before everything. You were grown in that lab, yes. But something happened when you stepped into that field. You looked up, and you asked why. We had never seen that before. Why did you end it?" I asked. "Why the no desire line?" She shook her head. "Because we were told it had gone too far. That if I didn't pull you out soon, you'd breach. You'd break the simulation. You already were. Every glitch, every hallucination, those weren't bugs. They were memories trying to wake you up. The toothbrush, it was the anchor. And now?" I whispered. "What is this?" She stepped forward and took my hand. "Now it's clean. The loop has collapsed. The system crashed the moment you dropped the anchor. They'll try to rebuild it eventually. But you're no longer part of it. You broke through. You wrote your way out." A pause. Then I asked the only question that mattered. "Is this real?" Her hand tightened slightly around mine. "It doesn't have to be perfect to be real," she said. "It just has to be yours." And for the first time in what felt like hundreds of lives, I smiled. A real smile. Small, hesitant, but mine. I looked around. The kitchen was still the kitchen. The light still flickered. The kettle still whistled softly behind me. But this time, it wasn't a program. It wasn't a loop. It wasn't control. It was a beginning. So I took a breath, stepped forward, and looked her in the eyes. "If you let me," I said, voice steady now, "I'd like to choose this time." She smiled. "You already have."